So the Indiana Fever have got their enforcer. They have got their enforcer for Caitlin Clark. And I'm not gonna lie, like, when it comes to Caitlin Clark and enforcer, last year everyone was talking about
the so-called WNBA bullies have finally been silenced. The intimidation tactics, the cheap shots, the constant trash talk, none of it worked. They were never ready for what was coming. Do you remember last season? Caitlin Clark wasn't just playing basketball, she was surviving a battlefield. Every time she stepped on the court, she was hacked, shoved, elbowed, and body-checked like she had mistakenly signed up for a wrestling match instead of a professional basketball league. Every time she touched the ball, there was someone in her face trying to rattle her, trying to break her confidence. And why? Because deep down you were terrified. Terrified of being overshadowed. Terrified that a rookie, a newcomer, was stealing the spotlight that you believed belonged to you. You feared that no matter how many times you tried to knock her down, she would still rise, sink impossible three-pointers, and tear apart your defense with surgical precision. You feared that the crowd's cheers would no longer be for you but for her. Well, message received. And let me tell you something. Nothing you did could stop her then, and nothing you do now will stop what's coming. The future of the game is changing, and whether you like it or not, Caitlin Clark is leading the charge. The Indiana Fever just fired back, and this time, the message is even louder for all the skeptics who thought being too physical would break Caitlin Clark. To those athletes who believe their cheap shots would make them look tough, news flash. It didn't make you look intimidating, it made you look weak. The attempts to rattle her, the unnecessary aggression, the desperate efforts to shake her confidence, it all backfired. So, tell us, how's that working out for you now? Because Caitlin Clark isn't fighting this battle alone anymore. She's got an army by her side, a battle-hardened, no-nonsense squad that's ready to stand with her. The Indiana Fever isn't just a team, they're a force, and they didn't come here to smile and wave. They came to put an end to all the reckless, aggressive tactics, and to protect their queen. So if you were one of those players thinking you could push Clark around, you might want to rethink your strategy. Because this isn't the same Indiana Fever you faced before. They've gotten bigger, stronger, and far more dangerous. They're done with the WNBA drama, and they're here to dominate. That's right, things are about to heat up. The league is about to witness a storm like never before. So grab some popcorn, stay locked in, and don't even think about blinking. Because what's coming next? It's going to shake the very foundation of the WNBA. I can guarantee that every second of this will have you on the edge of your seat. Today, we're pulling back the curtain and revealing the tough, no-nonsense warriors stepping up to protect Caitlin Clark. This is the turning point the WNBA never saw coming. But before we dive in, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. This way, you'll always stay ahead of the game with the latest WNBA updates, blockbuster trades, and in-depth analysis. Trust me, you don't want to miss out. We've got you covered. So, smash that subscribe button, tap the like button, and let's get started. Let's rewind for a moment. Remember last season? The entire basketball world had its eyes locked on Caitlin Clark the moment she stepped into the league. An NCAA record breaker, a college basketball phenomenon, a shooter with such ridiculous range that defenders started questioning their career choices. She wasn't just playing, she was orchestrating a show, dropping dimes, pulling up from the logo, and walking with undeniable swagger. And how did the league welcome her? With open arms? Not exactly. Instead, they hit her with elbows, body checks, and relentless physicality. Every possession felt like she had walked straight into the WNBA's version of the Royal Rumble. She couldn't even dribble without someone trying to send her flying into the second row. It wasn't about basketball anymore, it was about survival. She thought she was stepping into a skills competition, but instead, she found herself in a steel cage match. Every game felt less like basketball and more like a gladiator battle. And what did they call it? Just rookie hazing. They brushed it off as physical defense. But let's be real, those weren't basketball plays. This wasn't about welcoming her to the league. It was about ego, intimidation, and fear. A desperate attempt to put a rising star in her place. It felt less like competition, and more like a group of grumpy veterans trying to put the rookie through some outdated initiation ritual. But guess what? While they were busy fouling out, Caitlin Clark was busy proving a point. She didn't flinch. She didn't break. She walked through that fire without missing a beat. While some on social media were cheering cheap shots like it was some kind of WNBA WWE crossover, Clark remained locked in, ice in her veins, fire in her game. And let's talk about the real issue, the haters. You weren't just scared of her, you were terrified. You knew your defense couldn't contain her skillfully, so you tried to beat her down instead. And worse, nobody had her back. Indiana's roster was still young and developing, and yet, no one was stepping up to protect their star. No one was stopping the unnecessary contact. No one was stepping in and saying, "Keep your hands off our leader." It was like watching a team throw their best soldier into battle, unarmed, somehow against all odds. And despite everything thrown at her, she still rose. So, how's it going for those players who thought one hard foul would stop Caitlin Clark? You tried to punk her, but she turned you into nothing more than background extras in her highlight reel. Every cheap shot, every shove, every unnecessary elbow, you threw it all at her, and she brushed it off like it was nothing. But here's the real kicker. The script has been rewritten. And this time, they didn't just use a pen, they grabbed a Sharpie, bold letters, and a few exclamation marks for good measure. This isn't just a new Indiana fever, it's a new Caitlin Clark too. The so-called bullies had their fun, but guess what? Recess is over. And now, Indiana just got dangerous. But let's get one thing straight. This wasn't just an upgrade. This wasn't a simple roster improvement. Indiana went full-on Avengers Assemble. They didn't just bring in talent, they brought in toughness, size, and a fearless mentality. They brought in players who won't back down, won't apologize, and won't hesitate to get physical. And most importantly, they came to protect Caitlin Clark. Last season was Clark versus the world. This season, it's Clark and her squad versus anyone bold enough to step in their way. And if you even think about pulling the same moves from last year, these reinforcements are who? Let's examine everything, one well-known individual at a time. First up is Natasha Howard, known as the offensive security system of the WNBA. If you don't know her name now, that's your first mistake. She will be a continual nightmare for any player considering near the rim. Imagine her as Club Indiana's bouncer. No bullshit. T-complete authority, with no justifications. You should reconsider your decision to drive to eBasket because of her. This former Defensive Player of the Year and three-time WNBA champion has a tank-like build and a jaguar-like glide. She's also wearing a jumper. She is a woman who walks. Sign, don't try. She isn't interested in embraces because she has seen it all. She is available for difficult stops. She wants to prevent Caitlin Clark from suffering harm in the future if no one takes responsibility. If you do the same nonsense you did last year, Howard will be standing there with his arms folded and his eyebrows up, silently alerting you that you have roughly 5 seconds to correct that error. She is unparalleled in her playoff grit and intimidation. She is fighting for the future, the culture, and the entire franchise in addition to the rim. When we talk about being brave, sassy, and a little wild, we can't forget Sophie Cunningham, the chaos agent who turned trash talk into art and the sardonic enforcer who doesn't give a damn. You can have anarchy if you want it. Allow me to present Sophie to you. Cunningham, don't mess with me. This woman embodies what it means to be built differently. As someone who is aware that she is the most dangerous person on the floor, and possibly in the parking lot as well, she exudes confidence and is fiery and fearless. She is a Taekwondo black belt. Sophie's attitude is enough to set an example for the entire league. In addition to hitting a three-pointer in your face and yelling at your bench, she is the type of player who can fervently defend your top scorer. Did I mention the fighting, too? She really has a history of more in-game altercations than some UFC veterans. There are the girls' receipts. Surprisingly, she's not just barking. Sophie is an absolute jerk. She shot almost 38% from beyond the arc last season without hesitation. If you give her room, it will turn dark. She will push you into the paint as if it were personal if you stand up for her. What makes her such a danger? Her squad has a zero-tolerance policy for anyone who tampers with her edge and fire. Don't even bat an eye when you foul Caitlin Clark. As she cracks her knuckles to ensure she doesn't miss the next play, Sophie is already checking in. She is a statement maker in addition to being a shooter. Her presence serves as a constant reminder of Indiana's poor play this season. A wicked shot, a courageous veteran with a wild streak, a spark plug, and another body were also brought in by the fever. The last piece of the puzzle appears just when you believe Indiana is already overwhelmed. The calm assassin, the seasoned shooter, the person who has witnessed everything yet still acts as though she has something to prove. Now let's discuss Dwana Bonner. She proudly displays her playoff scars and rings, which she wears like battle medals. She doesn't simply show up when it matters most, she doesn't fold, and she doesn't falter. Bonner is only interested in winning. He doesn't care about Instagram likes. Even though she doesn't have the loudest voice in the group, everyone pays attention to her. Like thunder rumbling in before a storm, her leadership is silent but effective. Before the hurricane, her stress level was higher. She has fought in more postseason games than the majority of the league combined. Bonner doesn't shatter when the pressure increases. In the midst of the mayhem, she becomes the calm. The assassin has the upper hand. To be dominant, she doesn't need to drop 30. While others play checkers at work, she plays chess. Hold on to Caitlin Clark fresh, nurtures the up-and-coming talent while also giving the rest of the world a close-up look at what championship DNA looks like. Bonner is more than simply a player. She takes charge when the playoffs roll around and every possession counts. Bonner is accumulating victories, dropping daggers, and giving a masterclass in composure and lethality while the naysayers are tweeting and the bullies are elbowing. She is the closer and finisher. You've come this far, whoa. It should be clear from that you're enjoying the film. Why don't you click the follow button for a moment? It's very easy to use, completely free, and helps us continue to provide you with amazing content, particularly for WNBA fans. We can provide you with game highlights, player spotlights, and behind-the-scenes footage. You won't miss anything about your favorite teams and players if you follow. You can now tap that follow. Okay, let's resume our business. Let's discuss the bullies in the WNBA. Let's just express our opinions. Over the previous season, several athletes were a bit too sensitive. Kennedy Carter, Angel Reese, and a few people in the sky. There was less energy. Greetings from the league. Additionally, rookies should stay in their lanes, but Clark didn't flinch. The hits weren't even eaten by her. She poured a great deal of water. She continued to play her game with her head down. And what do you know? That made them uneasy. The excitement, the cameras, the crowds, and the knowledge that nothing they did could shatter her. They struck her. Quiet. The league is currently facing a new challenge. Clark is no longer alone. They recently progressed from being underdogs to apex predators in Indiana. Not only did the Fever seek genius, they sought balance. Queens, rooks, knights, and pawns are all arranged perfectly on a chessboard. The roster was made up of smart individuals. Thanks to Steph Curry's range, Clark is now leading the offense like a young Steve Nash, causing chaos, dribbling opponents, and producing amazing plays every single night. On any given night, Kelsey Mitchell, who is a walking bucket, can drop 25. Swift, icy and self-assured, Leah Boston is young, powerful, and in charge of the paint. She has already demonstrated her ability to be an MVP. 3 experienced bodyguards are here to win games and throw elbows. They are prepared to protect themselves and others. The kind of squad you schedule weeks in advance and begin training for. Do you believe that keeping Clark safe was the only reason for this? No. When using exclamation points, this is even more crucial. Bullying is no longer a successful tactic. You can't expect no blowback if you treat the league like a punching bag. Gone is the friendly Indiana Fever. I'm sick of being that adorable little rebuilding crew. The basic W can be circled by anybody. Cheap shots, elbows, and passive-aggressive post-game remarks are no longer acceptable. They are no longer the victims. The storm is them. Being treated like a child is getting old to Fever. They are fed up with being the team with the potential and fed up with being ignored. They have removed the label. It is as antiquated as flip phones and fax machines. There is a new roster, a new era and new energy. And it's obvious that you haven't been listening if you still believe Caitlin Clark is out here by herself. They're not going to wait until the following year. They are not awaiting your blessing. They are not attempting to blend in. They're stealing the respect they've gained and kicking down the door. Teams should be afraid of them. The message needs to be visible to them. You shouldn't take Indiana lightly. Never again this year. If you do attempt it, Be prepared to face a team that will be more than willing to provide you with a scoreboard to support your claims. Caitlin Clark would rather avoid trouble. She is not responding to players' tweets or giving them a retweet on Twitter. She doesn't go on lengthy rants at press conferences. She lets that game talk and her game talk. It's not a whisper. There's a lot of shouting and disturbance. However, her response to the question of the hard fouls was cool, collected, and utterly vicious. You play through that, even if it's not basketball. Interpretation. Fantastic work. I wasn't broken by you. I just received more content from you for my highlight reel. You see, Clark was busy dropping dimes and deep fouls while the haters were busy hurling nasty fouls and shade. Once you give her gasoline, she accelerates. You're a jerk. She actually converses with the scoreboard and a few of the players that faced her the previous season. On media day, they were more pressed than a jersey. It was unrelated to defense. Ego was the issue. Instead of leveling up, they reacted angrily because they couldn't tolerate the spotlight moving, but Clark, she remained bound. Is she now surrounded by a team? A wall of warriors 10 times more fearless and equally hungry. She is aware of one thing. This season, would you like to smoke? Indiana has already arrived at the door, so don't bother knocking. Cooking is being done by Clark. Haters are out there. And the WNBA bullies shook the season? Indeed they are. They attempted to frighten the door. Cooking is being done by Clark. Haters are out there. And the WNBA bullies shook the season? Indeed they are. They attempted to frighten her. They attempted to attack her. They attempted to persuade her to resign.